Hi, welcome to this MuseScore tutorial on orchestration, in which we'll look at some techniques to help you get the best out of your instruments. I have now decided which instruments should be playing where. The violin should be playing the melody in the first section, the forte, then the flute and the piano, and then violin and horn together in the last section. Remember that we don't have to just choose one instrument to play the melody. The other instruments are then taking the accompaniment roles in the other sections. But because I just copied and pasted from a piano part, there are some clear problems. Partly to do with the range that we have from the piano which can play any range, and instruments which have very specific ranges, but also due to the piano being able to do some techniques that the others can't, and equally the things that some instruments can do that the piano can't, like sustaining notes. Before I go any further, I'm going to save this as a new file. I'll call it Orchestration, just in case I need to go back to that old version. Now I'll remove these pianos so that I can focus on exactly what is happening in these top instruments. I'll press I for instruments, click on a piano and remove from score, and the same again. I can also zoom in here using Control and the mouse wheel to see a bit better what's happening. We said there are range problems. Let's go into transposing pitch, not in concert pitch, so that we can see exactly what those problems are. The first one is these horn octave jumps that are doubled in the trombone, so I don't think we need those. Let's take those up an octave, and in fact we can replace that with a minim. Same here. And in fact, I'm not even going to take the other one up. I know that that's also an octave. But even these trombone notes are too low. So let's take this section up an octave. I don't want to, I still want the octave jump, so I'll have to do the whole section. Control and up. And now, of course, the horn is below the trombone. I can see that in concert pitch again. So let's take that also up an octave. Let's listen to the brass on their own. It's a useful thing to do that while you're orchestrating, and so I'm actually going to leave the mixer open. Let's press F10, and I can use this to hear different things at a time. So let's solo the horn and the trombone and start from there. Spacebar. I'm pretty happy with that. This violin section looks like it's in a pretty good range, but let's just hear it. Let's unsolo those, solo the violin. The only trouble with this is that these dynamics are not particularly clear. And MuseScore is telling us that basically by playing this section too quietly. It should kind of be a forte, a swell up and a swell back down to forte, but we're not hearing that. So let's be explicit. Computers can be very smart, but they also need you to tell them exactly what to do. So let's put that in there. And I can see we're going to have the same problem with this flute. Let's make that also explicit. All right, let's hear that again. Much better. This flute section is actually a bit low for a flute. So let's try to take that up an octave. And now it's possibly looking a little bit high for such a piano section. Let's bring it back down and we'll see what we can do with that later. This last part is very clearly too low, and in fact these red notes mean that they are unplayable compared to these olivey green notes, which means that it's just difficult. These red ones mean they are unplayable on that instrument. So let's take that up, not just 1, 2, possibly even 3 octaves. Although I think we can probably do the same as we did with the horn and change that into a minim. There we go. We avoid that bottom D. This end section I think we'll also need to take up an octave here in the trombone to avoid that low D, but still have the octave jump. That's such a nice feature of this piece. And this horn is just too high. We can see those greeny olive notes. So let's bring that down. And let's hear what we've got. Not bad at all. But there's still just this flute that is bugging me. What we can consider here is changing the key of the piece for all of the instruments and transposing them all up or down to achieve a good range for everyone. So I'll go to Tools and Transpose. Notice that everything gets selected, and I'm going to select go to, we're in G minor, I'm going to go up a major third to B minor. Click OK, and the whole thing goes up. That flute looks a little bit more comfortable for flutes. Everything else is still okay, although perhaps these trombone bits can now come down, and we can get that full range there. So let's take these back down, and in fact this horn can come back down to join the trombone. One last listen. Everyone is now in a comfortable range, and it's sounding really good. Quite a common thing to see in piano writing is moving notes with a pedal so that we get this sort of smoosh of sound. Let's have a listen. And so to orchestrate that, I cannot simply put that line into a single instrument, because then you will lose that smoosh of sound. Just as an example, I can get rid of these pedals. I might like to put this in the violin. But there's no sustain of the note. And so one thing that we can do is to put this into different instruments at a time. So I'm going to copy that into the trombone. Take it down an octave and have one note. Now I want the B. I'll put that again. Hopefully we can just do this and copy. Take it down the octave. Make that a rest. Let's get rid of all these slurs and make a dotted crotchet. The violin can have D, which means this takes a bit more time to set up, but I think it'll be worth it. And the D can be a crotchet. C, the C. And so hopefully we can hear that sustaining sound through each note, through each chord. Let's just mute this piano. And sometimes adding an accent can help marcato. So let's just select all of these. That works quite nicely. And to improve things further, I could even, let's hold this note on. So we're going to tie it to another note. So let's make a dotted E and tie that, and a crotchet D, tie that. I don't want to tie that over because this is a change in chord, so we can assume that the pedal would stop, and in fact the normal, we would normally have something like that. Delete that one. Like that. In which case I want that to be a B, and plus for tying, and that to be an A, that with a C, that with an E, and then just tie all of these on. Let's see how that sounds. That can get something like the effect that we were looking for in this piano.